me under your wing, crack of thunder as the wild birds sing. You can hear hunger crying out, a sonic echo that leaves no room for doubt. Hold the shots, bring it back to what it's not. Make a move, do we do? As the world cries tears in our hands, are we all part of a bigger plan? Hold the shots, bring it back to what it's not.
After a thrilling endurance round at Daytona last time out, we head across the Pacific Ocean and go to Japan for rounds number 14 and 15 of the World GT Championship here on RaceSpotTV. Paul Smith and Peter Mackay here for all the action. And Peter, we've got an interesting round coming up from Fuji.
That we do. A fantastic circuit that recently hosted the World Endurance Championship. A really interesting layout. Big, high speed, long front straightaway. Then quite a lot of high downforce sections in the latter part of the lap, or in the later bit of the circuit. And then some technical bits as well. A real complex challenge is Fuji.
It certainly is. It's going to test these drivers to their limits with two 40-minute races, which of course includes a reverse grid draw for the second race. So here you see the schedule. We started back in July at Sebring, and we're right here for week number 8 of the championship at Fuji Speedway. Next time out, we head to the Red Bull Ring for the next sprint rounds, and then after a week break we go to the final 3 weeks of the series: Monza, Imola and Spa-Francorchamps, to decide who is going to be champion in this series. And looking at the championship standings, it's 44 points separating James Bume in his Altitude Esports car and Ross McFarlane in his Pure Sims Esports car. Ross's teammate Alex Davidson, who had a nightmare last time out at Daytona, he's a further 22 points back from his teammate, with Jack Sedgwick for NX Racing now just at 101 points off of the championship leader. Leif Sebastian, Ethan Critchley, who had even though he did have a spin on the last lap of the race last time out, really good showing last time, is in 6th. Matt Fletcher, Morgan Butler, Jesse Stevens and Matthias Lutchak round out the top 10. In Pro-Am, it's 81 points between the privateer of Dennis Grabowski and Adam Watson, with Michael Gray in 3rd place, falling back a bit now, but he's joint 3rd by Andy Archer, so a real fight in that one, because 5th place, just 1 point behind them, is Daniel Sedgley. Really tight battle for 3rd place in Pro-Am. Tim Perry then is in 6th, ahead of Jonathan Walker, Richard Simner, Nicholas Bocage and Ben Gregory, rounding out the top 10. In your AM Championship, it is 58 points between the Olympus Esports Titan driver of Sofia Ridpath and Karol Pakalka for Full Tilt v Simsport. William Guthrie for Full Tilt v Autosport is now 104 points back off of Ridpath. Then it's Adam Hedgecock with Lars van Rijn, Paddy Faulkner, who's only 8 points off of Lars, Paul Joseph Clist, Jesse Payne Wilkins, Josh Booth and Nathan Healy rounding out the top 10. The 6 teams in the Pro Teams Championship, and it's just 51 points separating Pure Sims Esports and Altitude Esports, with 3M UK then dropping further back in 3rd place. Altitude Esports white ahead of Apex One with Simutech. Team Redline, new entry to the Pro Team standings after Josh Thompson joined us last week. He is the sole point scorer in 6th place. In AM Teams Championship, it's Olympus Esports Titan, who have a 110 point lead in that particular championship over Fat Atom Racing. Full Tilt v Motorsports are in 3rd ahead of Altitude Esports Blue. AI Race Summaries DCW Racing in 5th ahead of Full Tilt v Simsports. Full Tilt v Autosport in 7th ahead of Olympus Esports Atlas. And then Performance Link Esports rounding out the 9 teams in AM. 32 cars and drivers are competing to get themselves to pole position for this opening race of the evening. As we say, 2 40-minute feature races, Peter, that these drivers are going to have to contend in. And James Bume is currently the one who's heading the timings. Ethan Critchley 2nd. What can Jack Sedgwick do to the line in his new Ferrari? Well, he's able to improve his time up to 4th.
Yeah, good lap there from Jack Sedgwick, just 0.3 of a second off the leading pace of James Bume and the Porsche, who continues to impress. And you called it before we came on air, Paul. Ethan Critchley with that McLaren, that slippery McLaren there in 2nd. Really good lap.
Had a good showing last time. And I still say that, as I said when in the points rundown, yes, he had a spin on the last lap, turn one of the last lap that lost him the opportunity of winning the race. But my goodness, what a showing that he had. And it looks like it isn't just a blip either. It looks like it's genuine pace in that McLaren now.
It seems like it, yeah, because there's a lot of parts of this circuit that aren't a bit like Daytona. You know, at Daytona you've got big, long straight where the McLaren really showed well, but here there's a lot of slow technical sections. The McLaren might work well there because it's not an aero car. However, there are some other parts of the circuit which are big, heavy aero loads, so Ethan wheeling that car well.
Well, we have got to the point where we're going to read out the grid for this, the opening race of the evening, round 14 of the World GT Championship, and it's Altitude Esports' James Bume on the front row, sharing that with the Fat Atom Esports McLaren of Ethan Critchley. Team Redline's Josh Thompson and Jack Sedgwick for Next Racing on row number 2. With the third row, all Pure Sims Esports, Ross McFarlane and Alex Davidson. On row number 4, it's Altitude Esports team boss Mark Fletcher. Alongside him, the top Pro-Am and privateer Dennis Grabowski. Row 5 for Andy Archer in his Pro-Am Fat Atom Racing McLaren, and Arthur Thurtell in his Altitude Esports white car. Row number 6 for Jack Osborne and Jesse Stevens. Row number 7 then for Michael Gray and Matthew Loveridge. Jonathan Walker on row number 8, sharing that with our AM pole sitter of Carol Pakalka for Full Tilt v Sim Sports. Tim Perry and Daniel Sedgley share row number 9. 10th row of the grid is Josh Boots with Adam Watson alongside him. Adam, I think he'll be disappointed with that qualifying. Row 11 for Paul Webster and William Guthrie with Chris Gooch and Ben Gregory on row number 12. The 13th row of the grid for Adam Hedgecock and Jesse Payne Wilkins with Dan Blackwell and Paul Clist on row number 14. Row 15 for Nathan Healy and Axel Sliptrovic. Sliptrovic, the first of our drivers not to score any times in qualifying, along with Phil Samways and AM Championship leader Sophia Ridpath starting from the back of the grid. So 32 cars on the grid here for us today, Peter. They've not got the longest of pacing laps here, so just before that really tight and twisty technical section that you've mentioned, not a lot of time for these drivers to prepare themselves for the start of this 40-minute race.
No, not at all. And straight away, Ethan Critchley wiggling the steering wheel back and forward, and Josh Thompson getting a little hard on the brakes as well there as much as possible. Again, Ethan Critchley back forth on the steering wheel, as is James Bume. And yeah, that's because you've got a very long run down towards turn 1 and then a huge braking zone. So let's watch out for watch out for carnage there. You want to avoid that, because if you have a bad race here, you just don't have the time to recover it. In a feature event, you'll start right from the back in the second race. So this is critical to get a clean run to the flag in this first 40-minute race.
We do not want a repeat of what happened in the European Le Mans series at Spa from the weekend, so let's hope that everybody behaves themselves. It is a 40-minute race, so there is a mandated pit stop in all of this as well, but the drivers getting themselves set up. It is James Bume who is the pole sitter, and they're waiting patiently for that iRacing Porsche 911 to nip off into pit road. There it goes. And now we're under the control and command of James Bume. Look at how tight up Josh Thompson is in all of this as well. He's almost pushing Bume, and Bume's waiting until the last minute to go on this one because he doesn't want to give a slipstream. That Porsche isn't the fastest in a straight line, so he wants to do it as late as possible as we go green flag racing then in towards turn number 1. It's close at the front there, but it's going to be Bume who gets out in front. Critchley's under a bit of pressure from Josh Thompson. There was a couple of spinners further back, but we do stay green flag racing in towards turn number 3 then. And this is the part where I think Critchley's car is going to struggle. He loses the place to Thompson there as they go around the sweeping long turns 4 and 5. Dennis Grabowski going out into the grass there on the exit of 5 into 6. So far so good, Peter, out there as well. Right as I say that, we get a spinner. That's Daniel Sedgley.
Oh dear, Daniel Sedgley. Yeah, he does manage to avoid any major damage, excuse me, by the least. But James Boumé, the way he controlled that start was just fantastic. It's in his prerogative of when to go. He waited for that flash of the green light. He did not go early at all, and that did protect him down into turn 1, and then now into this part of the section, this part of the circuit. This is where the Porsche really comes into its own, and he's been given chase by Josh Thompson in the Mercedes, and watch for that Mercedes when we get onto the start-finish straight.
Yeah, the grunt of that car, and then you've got the top speed of the McLaren behind as well. Denis Grabowski, 7th place in this queue behind Jack Sedgwick, who's not had a good start to this race, lost 2 places to Ross McFarlane and to Alex Davidson. Davidson's actually gained 2 places at the start here. And already a little bit of a gap between Davidson and Critchley as they head into turn number 1 and sorting themselves out through there. They go, and still 2 wide action further down in your field. There's a little bit of a rub and a kiss for a couple of those drivers out there. Sophia Ridpath, look at that, from the start, 10 places gained already.
Fantastic stuff from our AM Championship leader, Sophia Ridpath, because she's under threat now. We've seen some great driving from Karol Pakalka in the Mercedes, and that's really her biggest threat, her biggest rival in the AM class, so she's got to keep an eye on that. But great start to the race, 10 places gained, and she just wants to make sure to get in that reverse graded draw for race 2. If you can stick in that, that's the main thing, and you can get a really good grid spot for race 2. Great to see Jack Sedgwick fielding the new Ferrari 296 GT3, and doesn't it look fantastic there, sandwiched in between the 2 Pure Sims cars.
It's not going so good for the other Ferraris, unfortunately. Paul Webster's down in 23rd, and it's not Phil Samways, is it? Yes, it's Phil Samways in the other one. I thought Phil was in the Mercedes this season, but anyway, those 2 a bit further down the order in their Ferraris. But look at this, James Boumé feeling the need to try and go defensive. He's made his move, his one move down the start and finish straight with Josh Thompson right up behind, up over the white line. There's been some big accidents down the straight here in real world racing this year. Thankfully, everybody behaving themselves, but Thompson's looking for that cutback. He can't get the cutback out of there through turn number 2. The problem is, it gives you the outside for turn 3.
Yeah, Boumé's on a fairly tight line here though as well, whereas Thompson can go and swoop in, but Boumé covers the line, and now here comes Critchley, but has to back out of it a little bit. This corner so fast around the right-hander at 100R, and then to the very tight hairpin here, the very sharp left-hander at turn 6 and 7, and this is where, look at Boumé's Porsche just pulling away. It doesn't necessarily have the legs on the straight, but boy has it got the aero grip, and it's a really stable car as well, really easier to drive in these difficult sections.
And it's good on the brakes as well, although that Mercedes didn't look too bad there on the brakes itself as we went into that corner. Through they go then into this twisty section then, turn 13, turn 14. I can tell you from experience that this corner right here is so difficult to get right. To get to the apex of turn 15, you're turning up, braking, and Critchley's up over the curb, up over the sausage curb there. That could cause him some damage to the floor of his car, and if he's not careful, he could lose out that advantage that he has with the top speed of that McLaren.
Certainly above ground it looks okay, but yeah, you're absolutely right, Paul. You do not want to go over those curbs too much, and the way the damage model can work can sometimes be a little bit quirky. Now, is that just the shape of the louver of the car on the right there, or has that front been pushed up? I think it's just
really
the louver of the car. I think.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's the angular bodywork of that McLaren.
As we look further back, one of those Ferraris of the Full Tilt V Motorsport team, Paul Webster, trying to make some moves. Not happening on Sophia Ridpath, and Sophia, she's made those 10 places up to 22nd, but is now seemingly in a position where she can't really move forward. But in a 40-minute race like this, Peter, yeah, you're going to do an element of fuel saving through this one and strategy play.
There is an element of that, yeah. I think especially if you've had a pretty hot start and you've moved up 10 places, you're going to be running with drivers with a fairly hot pace as well, so I think you have to bear that in mind. But there are opportunities around here to do little sneaky bits of fuel saving as you're going around these kind of flowing corners where you're off the throttle for a little bit longer. You can certainly get away with being off the throttle for a lot longer, so that's certainly where you can get that done, and then into the bigger braking zones too. And what that does is just saves you time as Webster goes around. Red path, nurse Webster off the road.
Now that's that corner that I was on about, where it's always sweeping round and you're braking in a curve, and Ridpath is dropping back. Webster, I can tell you, has had more issues out there into Panasonic corner, which is the final corner, so it's gone from bad to worse for Paul, as now Ridpath is getting a little bit of a bump draft down the straight for Axel Sliuptrovic and his Porsche Prouditude Esports, and onto the brakes into turn number 1. So Ridpath does lose one place. The problem is Webster's lost a number of places now, all the way to the back of the field.
And these are the things that can get you protested with the stewards during the week. If a driver feels aggrieved from a situation or an incident on track, they can report it to the stewards, and the stewards will deem if there is a penalty, and indeed how harsh that penalty may be, and you can find yourself put to the back of the grid for the next race. And that, as we've seen so many times, is so punishing in this championship format, so you really don't want to be getting involved in incidents like that.
Well, it's happened to Ridpath for this round. Here's the replay then, coming around, and I mean, Paul does have space to the right of him there. There's more than the car's width left. I know they always talk about you've got to leave a car's width of space, but it works both to the inside and the outside of the track, and there was a car's width left there.
I think so, yep. That certainly, on an initial look at it, that looked like it, but it would take a few looks to get a definitive answer, I think. But James Boumé defending this, managing this lead well. This has been an amazing season for James Boumé, because he's stepped up such a level. He was one of the front-running Pro-Am drivers for a couple of seasons, but to go from the top front of Pro-Am to the front of Pro almost instantly is unheard of, really. And you'd expect, flashes of pace at the front, but this has been consistent every week, qualifying on pole a lot, and holding off a Josh Thompson, a Team Redline driver. And again, Ethan Critchley, you could use the same example. He's brought his pace up massively as well, and Josh Thompson's probably thinking, wait a minute, these guys were 10-15 places behind me when I last came here. I've been away 6 months, and all of a sudden the order has changed.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, if you give people opportunities, I mean, we haven't got some of those World Championship quality drivers that we've had in previous seasons competing. I mean, it's been great to see Josh back onto the grid here to give us that little bit of extra sort of competition up there at the front of the field. But it's given some of these drivers an opportunity to, right, okay, I've got to step up to the plate now, and I've got to be up there at the front. I think we've seen a little bit of Ethan Critchley just being a little bit not used to being up there with the front pack at times this season. I would think it would be safe to say and fair to say. But the last round at Daytona was brilliant, and this round, well, is showing that he's a menace again.
Yeah, but he's got a real run here on Josh Thompson, hasn't he? As he goes down the front straight away, that McLaren on the inside, on the right-hand side there, coming down towards the hairpin. It's just going to be a braking competition now, and Critchley goes deep on the brakes, snips Josh Thompson's nose off, and Josh Thompson doesn't...
Well, he doesn't seem too bothered about it, does he, really?
No, it seems fairly relaxed about that one. It's not unusual to see Josh speaking quite. He's very vocal with his spotter or team member beside him. He in full communication with them all the time, almost American IndyCar style, NASCAR style. But he'll get his own back. I would think he'll be plotting that right now, I would imagine.
Josh has a long memory. If you can race fair with him, he will give you so much respect, and you know, if you earn his respect, you can have some tremendous racing with him. From my time of racing in this series, back in the early seasons of this championship, you know, me and him in the reverse grid races, I'd be well out of place, and he'd come along, but because he knows that I'll race hard but fair, he does the same in the opposite way as well. He reciprocates, and he's a really good racer. But if you rub him up the wrong way, oh, he can really make your life a living hell out there on track.
I can only imagine what that must be like. And yeah, Thompson now trying to set up a run there on Ethan Critchley. The thing is Ethan Critchley's getting a draft in return from James Boumé, so it's kind of stalling out the leading three. Karol Pacalka in the pink Mercedes glued into the back of the 3M Porsche, trying to make his way forward. He's got a few positions to make up to chase down his championship rival Sophia Ridpath.
Yeah, I mean, Ridpath has made it back into 22nd now after dropping down that one place, but Pacalka...
Tell a lie, Pacalka's ahead. Excuse me. Yes,
yeah, Pacalka's
he's leading the class at the moment. I apologise. He's been in fact fantastic as Pacalka. I do like the martini colours on the helmet. You can just see in the mirror there. Oh, nearly gets a mirror full of Altitude Air Sports on the screen as well. And
can you guess who that is?
Oh, it's Adam Watson, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's made his way through. Good move though from Adam Watson.
Yep. Absolutely. I think Carol also a little bit of all right, you're that keen to get past me. Away you go, fella. I don't want you behind me. And so therefore Adam Watson does make it ahead. You've got to be careful with this chicane, by the way. The first curb on the inside of that chicane, you can get yourself a nasty slowdown penalty there, and it can really affect your race. So you do have to be careful with that throughout these races. But spinner, is that Jonathan Walker? It is.
Did he fall or was he pushed? Because he had Adam Watson behind him. Oh, another one of the BMWs off as well.
That's Jesse Payne Wilkins.
Oh dear.
So a couple of spinners at Net's corner. Back up and underway is Johnny Walker. Down positions though now, down to 23rd. Loss of 8 places in this race from where he started. Here we go, here's the replay. And the car's looks unsettled going into the braking zone there. And around he goes.
Just carrying a bit too much speed in the rear, started to come around and just rotated too much, and that was it. And same problem for Jesse Payne Wilkins as well, although you can't. Now this one said, oh, that's a 911 pendulum, oh, the engine's come around, and it's, oh, the rear engine's made that spin. Well, it's the same spin for a front engine BMW there, so it can be done in both configurations.
Has Josh Thompson made a mistake? He has dropped back.
It did seem when Ethan Critchley got past, he did seem to pull time out of Josh Thompson quite quickly, and then they came back together on the straight. Is Josh Thompson maybe thinking, right, what can we do here? Is he playing to a fuel number now? Is he thinking, right, I want to be able to get my pit stop strategy just right, and maybe want to go a lap longer than everyone else and get a clear lap in? Not sure. We'll see.
I mean, we have seen Josh play the fuel number game many a time in this series, and it work out for him to be able to jump people in the pit stop cycle. James Boumé feeling the need to just try and break the draft, but it's not working. So Critchley's getting to a degree close, but then seems to stall out a little bit in that McLaren. And I just think it's that run that Boumé gets through that final sector, through that tight, twisty section, that really does suit that Porsche so much that it just pulls out enough of a gap.
Yeah, it's just such a stable car, and it's the aerodynamics are fantastic. You can really lean on the car, and it gives you confidence. It gives you that reassuring, solid feel that it's gonna grip, it's gonna stick. And right now, James Boumé is using it to full effect. But what a drive as well from Ethan Critchley's right there. And if this comes down to a dogfight on the last lap or two, you want to have the straight line speed of that McLaren up your sleeve and be able to set up a run. And is Ethan Critchley, is he in fact really comfortable there? Is he thinking, this is good, I like this speed and I can save fuel and jump him in the pit stops?
Have to wait and see about that as we go through onto to this lap. But yes, certainly James Bume doing a good job at the front of that field with that Porsche. But yeah, Critchley now is just following. He's just following in the wheel tracks of that leader. Thompson's dropped back down to 2 seconds back off of these. So his lap times, it's only about 0.4 of a second that he's losing on them, but this is time that he's losing out to Ross McFarlane behind. Cedric has actually made it past Alex Davidson in all of this, so up to 6th place for him. Paul Webster has had the mechanical meatball warning flag flown in his direction. He's on pit road right now, and Josh Boot is the first of our pitters. 21.7 seconds is the number for Josh's pit stop, so he's just out and on his own, rotating through the field.
Well, when will our leaders come in? That's the question, with Bume leading from Critchley, and Thompson is just dropping off the leading scent quite significantly, quite dramatically. Oh, Ben Gregory's had a look up the inside there and came off worse, trying to get by on I think it was Johnny Walker again, who's certainly picked up a few dents in his 3M Porsche.
I think actually Gregory was making the move on Sedgley, but didn't realise just how deep he'd gone and ends up wiping himself out on Johnny Walker's car there. But fortunately for Jonathan, he is fine. Now look at how much closer Ethan Critchley is to the back of Bume here. Bume looked to make a terrible run out of the final corner, and he's bump drafting him down the straight. Is Critchley thinking a long game here? Well, he's pulling out into clean air. Bume, I don't like cars chopping off the nose into a braking zone, because you never know whether the car behind you has got their braking right and whether they're going to wipe you out. But yeah, I think we're seeing right there that Ethan Critchley's decided, I'm going to work with you, James, here. You stay ahead, give me some fuel saving, and I'll push you along.
Interesting one. Well, we saw some comments between drivers about bump drafting and the benefits or not of it last time out at Daytona, and maybe Ethan Critchley's kind of picked up a trick there, quite possibly. It does make sense in it to a degree, to try and break away from Josh Thompson, because if Ethan Critchley can eliminate the presence of Josh Thompson in that leading battle, that can only be a good thing. He wants a straight fight here with Bume, and he does not want Josh Thompson to be involved in that. And if he gets in a silly battle at this stage with Bume, Thompson will be on them in no time. So I think he's aware of that. He's playing this one smart. This is not the time to be throwing big moves, and I think playing this one very, very smart. If he can run the same pace as Bume like for like, and then do a little bit of fuel saving in the slipstream and down into braking zones, he could be in a very good position to jump Bume at the pit stops.
Former championship driver Tony Draper, good to see you in the YouTube chat. Very good comment that he's just pointed out about Josh Thompson, wondering if he's damaged the car on the curbs on the penultimate corner, like we thought that Ethan Critchley had done. That could potentially be a reason why he's dropping off pace, as Jack Sedgwick is showing his nose. Couple more people going into pit road. Tim Perry's on pit road right now. Arthur Thurtle and Ben Gregory have both been on pit road along with Paul Clist. So pit stops are happening, and the thing is, for your race leaders, they're actually catching some of those people who have pitted right now.
Well, that is the trigger point for our leading drivers. They don't want to get caught up in any traffic they don't have to be caught up in. So will we see some of them diving to pit lane, or even starting to adjust their strategy of when they were going to go into pit lane? So through they go. There are leaders on the first piece of lap traffic without too much fuss there, going into the very, very difficult Dunlop chicane, but it's almost difficult to call it a chicane. It's like two very short, sharp hairpins jagged together. It's almost like being on a single venue rally on an airfield. It's so tight through there.
Oh, don't you'll start off my PTSD about setting up single venue rallies on airfields.
Stop knocking over the cones.
It wasn't the cones that we were worried about, it was the tyre stacks that we were putting up that we had to replace every 5 minutes. But anyway, going down the start and finish straight, it was a better exit this time for James Bume onto the start and finish straight, so he's not worried about that. Josh Thompson's time across the line, he's back with the pace of the leaders, so I'm wondering, it's either he had some damage or maybe he was just managing a fuel number, and now he's reached a certain point, he's thinking, right, let's just get the hammer down a bit.
I think he'd maybe spiked the tyre temperature.
Possibly. Because
here at Fuji, with it being a clockwise circuit, the left-hand side tyres get an absolute hammering. There's so many long radius corners where the left-hand side tyres on the car are getting completely destroyed and the temperatures go through the roof. So we saw at the World Endurance Championship a few weeks ago when they came here, many of the teams, no teams were double stinting the left-hand side. They were only single stinting the left-hand side and then double stinting the right-hand side tyres. So there is a chance that we might see here, although I know it's only a 40-minute race and there's a small amount of fuel to go in, but you might have time to nip on two tyres on the left-hand side.
And we've seen from when it's hot conditions, those Mercedes, the front left on a track like this, it's susceptible, is that front left corner, to really just, with the heat build up and the tyre wear that it gets on there, especially around long radius corners. It's a low grip surface as well, is Fuji. I mean, traditionally Japanese motorsport venues generally have that not as grippier asphalt as you get in some, say, European countries, for example, because of the stone that they use in the asphalt. So it can exacerbate that tyre wear on that front left corner as well.
It can, yeah, and you're absolutely right. It is the front left that's always the issue on that Mercedes, because it's got that honking big 6.2 litre V8 in the front of it. So that is always a concern. So it could well be tyre life, and that might be hampering the BMWs of Alex Davidson and Ross McFarlane too. So I wonder, are the rear engine and mid engine Porsche and McLaren, are they a little bit more comfortable as the tyre wear begins to get more so? We're not seeing Bume or Critchley looking really out of shape at all, and even the changes of direction or on power.
I mean, it's only 36 degrees Celsius, so it's not the hottest of track temperatures that we've had here, as we've got more people on pit road. We've got Michael Gray, Phil Samways, Andy Archer. Andy Archer's is a long pit stop. I wonder if he's ended up with a penalty coming onto pit road, or whether he's got something else untoward going on there. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, that those mid-engined or rear-engined cars are just seeming to be coping with this a lot better. We've seen previous rounds with the BMW especially, just how much more it wears the front tyres compared to the Porsche, for example. So it can have a big effect on those front engine drivers and cars.
The thing with the Porsche as well is, with a 4-litre flat 6 normally aspirated engine, the peak power band is higher up the revs. So in the low revs, you're not really spiking energy through the tyres as much, whereas the BMW is turbocharged quite heavily. So Ferrari likewise takes a lot of its power from the turbo. So now our first pit callers, 111 Mark Fletcher in. Or our first front-running pit callers, I should say. Karol Pacalka in from the lead of AM also.
Yeah.
And Pacalka's Mercedes goes up on the jacks.
Yeah.
That means he's taking some tyres.
Jonathan Walker, William Guthrie was in a BMW as well. So, yeah, we're seeing those pit stops now coming into play, and to see whether they do take tyres or not. 10 seconds for Mark Fletcher in the pit box. We're talking about 10-11 seconds for a pit stop, although Pakalka was 13.6 seconds. So I wonder if that's just getting those left side tyres, for example, getting changed on. That's maybe the limiting factor there for them.
I really think that could be worth it, just whacking those two left hand side tyres on, because you go through 100R particularly is so heavy on the tyre, and it's relentless. You can't straighten the wheel up. You have to go around the corner. So there is, yes, there's little nuances you can make with your driving style, but not much. So the tyres really do get a pounding. Now, peeling off there,
Thompson.
Yep.
That was Josh Thompson.
No, they're both out still.
Josh Thompson has a black flag on pit entry, so it must be a speeding onto pit road penalty, and you can see the frustration there on his face. He's not a happy bunny. Oh, he's really not happy at all, and he's chatting away down the radio. Gotta take your medicine sometimes.
Watching.
You've got to take your medicine though, haven't you? Unfortunately. He's saying about the button itself, isn't he? Oh, he's done. He's done. It's either he's done or he's trying to fix the problem. I think he's done.
So is that meant that he's pressed the button thinking that it was mapped, and it's obviously not mapped for some
Dennis
reason?
Grabowski has got a penalty coming onto pit road as well.
So we've had 3 cars get pit lane speeding penalties. That's unusually high, Paul. Maybe there's something else to this.
It is a very high speed pit entry here. You are committing yourself to that pit lane speed limit line so late, and you're hitting that brake as late as you dare, because if you even 100 yards early, as Bume's coming onto pit road now, as is Critchley, see 2 leaders onto pit road. They're okay, no penalties for them. But if you leave, say, 100, 200 metres onto your rivals, they're gaining that time, and it's a lot of time at that speed that you're talking about.
It is, and if you get it completely wrong in that situation, if Bume had been really late, really early on the brakes, he might have had Critchley run into the back of him. Now let's take a look. Are they going to either of them take tyres? No, neither. The BMWs are, though. Are they?
Yes.
Both Pure. Okay, so both Pure Sims BMWs taking 2 tyres. I suspect on the left-hand side.
I suspect 1 tyre, the front left.
Front left. Yes.
I have seen this.
Yeah.
I have seen this in World Championship events when we used to have the World Championship GT series. There was one race at Silverstone where the team that won, they changed just the front left tyre.
Yeah, with 10 seconds in the pit lane, you've got no chance to do 2. So it must be 1. That's a great call, Paul. So yeah, front left. I mean, that it does getting absolutely annihilated here at Fuji. That's what makes it such a challenge. Well.
So now my question to you, Peter, is Ross McFarlane, Alex Davidson, are they going to be able to challenge Critchley and Bume with that fresher rubber on the front left? I mean, the balance is going to feel awful, in my opinion. It is going to feel awful as that balance of the car. It will not want to turn left for the first lap and a half. But they will have so much more grip, especially through 100R.
It's an interesting one. It's a very interesting one. When it does get, we'll only know that in the last lap or 2. The issue might well be is that they've given themselves too much work to do. I mean, the gap of at this level of 4 or 5 seconds is a lot. The thing that both Pure Sims BMWs of Ross McFarlane and Alex Davidson have to bank on is Bume and Critchley knocking lumps out of each other. That's what they need right now, because at this level with 9 minutes to go, 4 seconds is a lot to pull in, but let's see. Critchley will really want this. He came so close last week at Daytona to winning, a proper on merit outright win. Qualifying it in that position and winning in that position. We've seen him win in reverse grids, I know that, and that's nothing away from that, but to do it on full merit is what he's looking to do. So he might well throw the kitchen sink at this one on Bumi, and Bumi on the other hand, he's really got a championship lead to hang on to. So is he going to be wanting to get in much of a punch up? Is he going to want to bring McFarlane and Davidson into the conversation? Absolutely not. So fascinating 8 minutes and 44 seconds coming up.
Absolutely, there is Ethan. See how he rises up into the seat when he hits that brake pedal. That just shows how much force he's putting through that brake pedal. It is James Bume, Ethan Critchley and Ross McFarlane are your top three in the race. Your top Pro-Ams, Jack Osborne pitting late is your top Pro-Am, with Matthew Loveridge second place and Tim Perry third in Pro-Am. So that's quite the different Pro-Am leadership that we're seeing out there compared to what we've seen in previous rounds. In AM, incredibly, Sophia Ridpath has been gaining even more places, is right behind the AM leader of Karol Pukalka, who's in 15th. Ridpath, 16th place now. The third placed AM driver is Josh Boot in 21st.
Bumi going very defensive here as we go into the braking zone, and this is going to give Critchley an opportunity to close in, and he does, closes in a good car length there, or even two, and now he's got a superb run on Bumi as they come up to the very fast turn 3 where you're completely blind going into that entry and just trying to carry as much speed as you dare, then through 100R. Think of that poor front left tyre going, oh please stop.
Yeah, as they go through that, and you can see the McLaren. Do you know what? It's really helpful having that McLaren out there, because you can tell when Critchley's getting off the throttle, there's just that much flames gets thrown out the back of the car that you don't need a pedal trace. You can see it right there with all the flames spitting out all that unburnt fuel. And Critchley now biding his time, being patient. And I think this is something that he's needed coming into the second half of the season. Just getting a bit of patience and learning to be up there. And I agree with a point that you made last round, Peter. I think that Fat Atom have focused their energies on last round at Daytona, this round at Fuji, and then the next endurance round, which is at Monza.
It's only the only real theory I can kind of see with the car, because it's got a bit of a reputation for being a knife-edge car and difficult to control on the limit. And when we saw just how close to the limit and ultimately beyond it Ethan Critchley went last week, but we also saw how you could be right in the draft of it and it's still pulling away from you. So it's definitely got the grunt down the straightaways. So yeah, interesting call from Fat Atom. But if there's a car with such a strong attribute, I mean, it's like top trumps. You know, you might have rubbish stats for every other one, but if you've got a dominating stat, you'll win the hand every time.
Yeah, as soon as you get like the Bugatti Veyron, and it's like, okay, I'm my choice at top speed. That's that certainly. It's been a long time since I've played top trumps, you know, Peter.
I've got Nürburgring top trumps.
Oh,
we'll need to play Nürburgring top trumps. It's in German, but you learn some German, so.
Meine Deutsch ist nicht so gut. As we go through, 5 minutes remain in this race. This first race has just flown by here. I'm certainly having a lot of fun watching this one, and it's intriguing to see how that's going to pan out. For me, as that Mercedes catches that curb wrong, and that's opened the door for Jack Osborne to say thank you very much. I'll take that spot from you. You've got to be so careful through the section with the sausage curbs, those yellow curbs that you see off to the side of the track there, that to discourage drivers from running wide or from cutting the course. And they're again here on the exit of the final corner. I'm still, I know you're still of the opinion, sausage curbs have no place in motorsport.
The only place they have a home is in the bin. Straight in the bin, please, for all sausage curbs. And also the Stegosaurus curbs that they've started to fit at Jerez. No thank you to them as well. Interesting watching that Mercedes when the curb strike, it just really does look a handful. It's almost like when you're in a really powerful speedboat and you hit the crest of a wave and just get flung upwards. Very not pleasant at all. Tim Perry in the Porsche, in 11th overall right now, and looking pretty strong on the cusp of a top 10 finish. I think he'll take that.
Yeah, and third place podium spot in Pro-Am. Certainly a good showing in that Porsche. I've never been speedboating, so obviously, Peter, you and me mix in different circles if that's the case.
I was using my imagination.
Well, I've never won bullseye either, so you know it's. For those of you who are not from the UK, of a vintage of the late 80s, early 90s, you won't understand what bullseye is. Just Google it. It was a tremendous, one of the
great
show
programs in television history, is what it is.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you win prizes in a game of darts. What need I go on?
What more do you want? Well, anyway, we've got, I reckon, about 2 laps remaining here, Peter. If Critchler's been close, but he's not been close enough to make moves, do you pull the trigger at the start of the last lap? Because he's not got the grunt to get it to the finish line, because the finish line comes up earlier than the start line here.
It does, yeah, and I think that's where Boumet's got an edge, where he's got the performance through the back part of the circuit, through the high aero parts, and to a degree through the technical bits in the final section also. So Boumet's in a strong position right now, but Critchley's going to go for it, because I don't think I'd be speaking out of turn to say he's not necessarily in the overall championship fight. Boumet obviously is, he's the championship leader. Critchley wants to put wins on the board, I think, right now. So he's not going to want to settle for a second. When he's in this position, has the chance to strike, he is going to go for it if he even gets a whiff of a chance.
And catching traffic at the worst possible point of the track if you're James Boumet, getting held up behind them. Critchley needs to take advantage of this traffic, because we're going to be starting the last lap of this race here. As we go along the start and finish straight, then this incredibly long straight down towards turn number 1. Critchley's not really there though, is he? He's struggling to get with Boumet. I'm wondering if he's just not got that top speed in the end to make that count into one the go. And 4/10 of a second.
I wonder, I mean, at Daytona you can basically run the car in full dragster spec, because you're not really putting the car under any aerodynamic load at all at that circuit, so you need as little aerodynamic drag as possible. Here, the section we're going through right now, you need all the aerodynamic grip you can get, so he's maybe having to run a little bit more wing to keep that McLaren remotely drivable, whereas Boumet can potentially run a lower wing, because that 911 GT3R has just got so much inherent stability.
Axel Slijepčević has dropped down a few places, meaning that Tim Perry does make it into the top 10 at the start of the last lap. But we're through the chicane now at Dunlop, heading uphill once again in the view of Mount Fuji here. Through the right, just got a few corners left to go. Important to get your braking and you turn in right there on that left-hander at nets. And then this double apex last corner. Get the run out this corner, and James Boumet, he's looking forward, and he's looking forward to another win here this season in the World GT Championship. It's round number 14, and it's going to be the Altitude Esports driver of James Boumet who takes the checkered flag. Incredible.
What a masterful drive. What a masterful drive. Under pressure the whole way. Bumi never flinched once.
Jack Osborne for Pro-Am. He's going to see the checkered flag first. This is a great result for Fat Atom Racing to get 8th place overall and a Pro-Am win here. And Karol Pakalka, in the end, is going to take the AM win. 15th place overall, ahead of the championship rival, the Sevilla Ridpath. Ridpath, a tremendous drive today in this opening race. Gained 16 places into 16th. That was a really, really good opening race, and I'm looking forward to the reverse grid race.
You bet. And this is where James Bumi now is praying to the reverse grid spinny wheel god, saying, please be a small number, please don't send me far back on the grid, because whatever our reverse grid number is, that's how many places that James Bumi has to go back. And as we know, that is where World GT Championships are won and lost.
Well, here we go then. Here's the reverse grid draw, and we get to see what number it is that will take that reverse grid. Oh, and it is a small one. It's 12. Oh, if you're James Bumi, you will be dancing at that one. That is for sure. We'll confirm who it is who's on pole position in just a few moments' time. But it is James Bumi for Altitude Esports who wins round number 14 of the World GT Championship, with Ethan Critchley for Fat Atom Esports in second place. Ross McFarlane third for Pure Sims Esports, ahead of his teammate Alex Davidson fourth. Jack Sedgwick fifth, ahead of Mark Fletcher, with Jesse Stevens rounding out the top 7. Jack Osborne takes a Pro-Am win for Fat Atom Racing in 8th place, ahead of Olympus Esports driver and Matthew Loveridge. Tim Perry, a good 3rd place in Pro-Am, 10th place overall for his driving. Axel Sliptrovic is going to be starting on the front row of the grid and on pole position for the second race this evening. Michael Gray for Full Tilt V Motorsports finishes 12th and gets that reverse grid draw. Arthur Thurtle just misses out on that reverse grid along with his teammate Adam Watson. Karol Pakalka is your top AM championship place driver in 15th, ahead of the AM championship leader Sevilla Ridpath in second place. Daniel Sedgley in 17th, ahead of Jonathan Walker. Phil Samways 19th, ahead of William Guthrie, 20th and 3rd place in AM. Dan Blackwell, 21st, ahead of Josh Boot, with Dennis Grabowski dropping down the order after getting a drive-through a stop-and-hold penalty on pit entry for speeding. Andy Archer, Ben Gregory, Chris Gooch, Adam Hedgecock and Jesse Payne-Wilkins are the last drivers to finish on the lead lap. Paul Clist, 1 lap down, and those that finished 2 laps down or more. Nathan Healy is one of those drivers. Josh Thompson, who we saw with the problem getting onto the pit limiter, and Paul Webster parked the car after his issues out there. So that is the opening race of this evening, Peter, and really we're seeing a resurgence in that Fat Atom Racing car of not just Ethan Critchley, but also Jack Osborne getting the AM win, Pro-Am win, sorry.
Clearly they've got that McLaren MP412C really well dialed in, haven't they? Fantastic driving from both of the Fat Atom drivers there as well. And Ethan Critchley, he had James Bumi under the cosh the whole way. He couldn't have put any more pressure on him, really. And the only thing for Ethan Critchley was that Bumi just didn't crack. Under 40 minutes might not sound much, but believe me, it is. When you throw a pit stop into there coming in and out, we saw 3 drivers get pit lanes entry speeding penalties, so that shows you how many banana skins there are there for the drivers, and neither of the top 2 guys made even the slightest whiff of an error. Brilliant to watch.
Yeah, it was, and they were keeping a relentless pace up there as well. I mean, they were only on the last lap a few tenths off of their best lap time, so it just shows the relentless pace that James Bumi and Ethan Critchley had at the front of the field. If you're Ross McFarlane and Alex Davidson, you must be thinking right now, we need a really good result in this race, a good reverse, small reverse grid, so James Bumi's not got that much places to make, but it's going to be hard to make your way forward in these 12 spots.
It will, because it's a very high quality reverse grid. Yes, I mean the bigger the reverse grid, the more you're mixing up the field effectively. So yes, you're right. It is an opportunity then for the Pure Sims drivers to get ahead and stay there. I mean, Alex Davidson, he's gonna. I mean, he desperately needs to win this race, because remember last time out he had an internet disconnect which booted him out of the race and no points. So for him, it's a must win really at this stage of the championship.
Yeah, Alex Davidson does need to get some points. There are drop scores, don't forget, in effect in this championship, but you don't want big fat zeros too many times on your championship points when you could take drop scores into effect. Next race then, we see Michael Gray starting from pole position, the Pro-Am driver. Axel Slijepcevic, after his penalty serving in qualifying, is starting on the front row with him. You gotta say that's a good shout for a win for Axel here.
It's a great opportunity for him, isn't it? Especially running that altitude Porsche, which clearly has very, very good setup data. You know, all of the drivers have driven well in it. Tim Perry and Adam Watson both had good runs there. Of course, our overall winner, James Boumé. So yes, great opportunity for Axel Slijepcevic to get a win here.
Tim Perry, you quite rightly point out there, he was up there in that Porsche as well for Altitude Esports, so definitely a good opportunity for them. If you're Dennis Grabowski, you must be kicking yourself for that mistake, and if you're Josh Thompson, I think you're busy punching your sim equipment for it not working. I've seen it happen many a time. I've actually experienced a teammate in a team race. I've handed over the car. The pit limiter was on. He comes out of pit road. He can't disengage the pit limiter. He did the entire lap round Spa on the pit limiter.
Ouch. Yeah, it does seem if it's obviously some sort of failure, because you would, when you install the new wheel, you would be, well, the first thing you would map is, well, maybe the headlight flasher might be the first one, and then the second one is the pit lane speed limiter. So yeah, understandably you can see why Josh Thompson is quite frustrated there. So hopefully we'll see him out in race 2. Hopefully this hasn't been the shortest comeback in World GT Championship history. Let's hope not.
I think I'd be a good challenger at that, actually, for comebacks. Anyway, what we will do is we'll step aside for just a few minutes to hear from the series sponsors, but stick around because the reverse grid race number 2 of the evening is coming up after these. Welcome back to coverage of rounds number 14 and 15 of the World GT Championship here on RaceSpotTV from Fuji Speedway. The name right there, Paul. It's Paul Smith and Peter Mackay on commentary for you, and we are getting ourselves prepared for the second race of the evening. It's a 12-car reverse grid for this one, so definitely we will get to see how things go for James Bume and Ethan Critchley. Drivers just out there getting themselves prepared for this one with a warm-up session. Now, I've been having a look in the virtual paddock, Peter, and Critchley was the first one to congratulate Bume on his race. Bume said that his rear tyres after lap 10 were dead, and Ethan Critchley said his fronts were dead from all the dirty air.
Interesting. Well, GT3 cars continue to get more and more aerodynamic ability and performance, and with that usually comes dirty air for the car following behind. The turbulence of the air flow coming off the car in front disturbs the front of the car behind. So that's an interesting one, really. Will they think about, throwing on a tire, it will be a tire at the pit stops? I wonder. That's going to be risky to do that. Pearson's drivers did so, but did it pay off? Not necessarily.
Not really, no.
No.
Yeah. I mean, with that Porsche, it's that grunt out of the corners. So I'm thinking of like turn 1, turn 6, out of the chicane and out of that tight, twisty section where he'll be really putting the force on the rear tyres, and I can think that's where maybe James is saying that those rear tyres just died off after 10 laps in that one.
It's an interesting one. I mean, of course, the weight balance of the car front to rear as well will, ultimately with the engine, it's not hanging and way out over the rear wheels like it used to in the early 1970s, but it's still a rear engine car. It is still behind the axle, if only just slightly, so that it's then difficult to get it in a 50-50 weight distribution. Therefore, you are going to put the rear tyres through more stress, just like as we talked about with the Mercedes having the 6.2 litre V10 up in the front. That puts the front tyres under a lot more strain as well. So you can't escape physics, as they say. So there's definitely what you have to do around it. And as Ethan Critchley says, if you're following a car in front, that's one way of overheating your front tyres. We hear about it in Formula 1. We hear about it actually a lot in MotoGP now, motorcycle racing, because MotoGP bikes are getting more and more aerodynamics, which I personally detest on motorcycles, and then they don't do anything for development of road bikes. So, and also what it means is that we've got worse racing because the turbulent air off the back of the bike is loading up the front tyre temperature and pressure and making it almost impossible to follow.
So what you're saying is everybody should watch World Superbikes then?
Well, they've started to get a little bit of it as well, but definitely not as much. Watch British Superbikes.
Yeah, British Superbikes. That's where it's at. You're saying that just because they go to Knockhill, aren't you?
Of course, yeah. They should have every round of the championship. Maybe one. Maybe one.
Cadwell. Up over the jump.
The jump, just for the jump would be cool, but they're actually racing at Cadwell. Look away.
Yep.
Oh dear.
That's called choosing to just keep the foot flat down, and
that's not going to polish out.
Well, we're testing the damage model. We're doing iRacing a favour here in making sure we have in-depth testing of the damage model.
That certainly put it to its limit anyway.
Yes.
I think the temperature, we've talked about the temperature of front tyre spiking, the temperature of that driver's computers has spiked from all the calculations it's just had to do.
Well, we've got a few seconds left here before we get started for the second race of the evening. All 32 cars are going to be out there for race number 2 of the evening, so it's good to see that everybody coming back. So hopefully Josh Thompson's be able to get to the bottom of what happened to his pit limiter in that race. But let's take you through your starting grid then for race number 2 of the evening, round number 15 of the World GT Championship. And on pole position, it's Michael Gray for Full Tilt V Motorsports, with Axel Slijepcevic alongside in his Altitude Esports Porsche. Row number 2, Tim Perry and Matthew Loveridge, with Jack Osborne and Jesse Stevens on row number 3. Fourth row of the grid is Mark Fletcher and Jack Sedgwick, with Alex Davidson and Ross McFarlane. You can't separate those two from race number 1. They're there on row number 5. Row 6 for your winner, James Bume, who's sharing that row with Ethan Critchley. Seventh row of the grid for Arthur Thurtle, with Adam Watson alongside him. Carol Pakalka and Sophia Ridpath are going to continue their championship battle on row number 8. Row 9 for Daniel Sedgley and Jonathan Walker. 10th row of the grid is Phil Samways and Will Guthrie. Row 11 is Dan Blackwell and Josh Boots. In row number 12, it's Dennis Grabowski and Andy Archer. Row 13 for Ben Gregory and Chris Gooch, with Adam Hedgecock and Jesse Payne Wilkins on row number 14. 15th row of the grid, Paul Clist and Nathan Healy. And the final two on the grid for you is Josh Thompson and Paul Webster on row number 16. Well, the drivers are getting themselves out there on the pace lap, getting themselves ready for the start of this one very quickly then, Peter. Have you got any thoughts as to who could possibly take this one, this race?
Ooh, that's a tricky one, Paul. No one's actually jumping out to me straight away, I will be honest. But I wonder.
I'm going to say Jesse Stevens.
I'm going to say Jack Sedgwick in the Ferrari.
Hey, that'd be the first Ferrari 296 win in this series. Would that, if that was the case? The drivers, though, waiting patiently behind the Porsche safety car, waiting for that to turn off to driver's right, and then we'll be under the control of Michael Gray. Now, will Michael wait as long as James Bume did in the last race? The Audi does have a little bit of pull with that V10 engine, and look at them all. They're all together. He's going to go now. We're going to go green flag racing here at Fuji for round 15 of the World GT Championship, and it's a good launch from Michael Gray heading in towards turn number 1. Axel Slijepcevic, though, holding on to second. Who's going to have third? Tim Perry's down the inside, holds on to that third place then, does Tim. Although Jack Osborne's trying to get involved in all of that. Matthew Loveridge as well, dropping a place from the start. Then Jonathan Walker's had issues out there at the back, and Josh Thompson is stopped out on track. I can tell you from the track map. Paul Clist is involved in that as well, so issues further down the order. But we carry on with green flag racing here. Michael Gray staying up front right now, ahead of Axel Slijepcevic, Tim Perry, Jack Osborne, Matt Loveridge, Mark Fletcher, Jesse Stevens, Ethan Critchley's up 3 places already here, with Alex Davidson and Jack Sedgwick, although there's more moves being made, and there's a car around. It's Davidson. Oh, and there's another. That's a PSM's Porsche. That's Stevens.
Oh, what a mess. Oh, skittles everywhere, cars everywhere, and to rejoin onto the circuit and then drive head on into your teammate who's also crashed across the circuit. What a disaster for Pure Sims there.
Well, there goes my pick. Axel Slijepcevic to the front of the field here. Although he's going to be under pressure from the Audi. Michael Gray, the only Audi driver out there. So the venerable Audi R8 with its V10 motor down towards turn number 1, and he's going to look for a lead change here, you know, as we go into the brakes. No, hanging back for the time being. But yeah, drama on the opening lap here, Peter. Ethan Critchley's up 4 places, Adam Watson up 6 places, Ross McFarlane's down to 14th. So all 3 Pure Sims drivers have had an absolute mare out there.
Oh, just disastrous opening lap for Pure Sims all round there. I mean, Davidson as well. you have to question rejoin. I mean, especially on lap 1 when you know everyone's bunched up and you rejoin straight onto the circuit. It's questionable that for me, but it's maybe that desperation of knowing that that's a championship just slipping through your fingers like sand. Just such a desperation, really. Such a shame for Pure Sims to have their whole effort taken away there in the early stages of the race. So it's certainly a fantastic start as well. Tim Perry made full use of his grid spot as well up there in the top 3.
Yeah, had to go defensive as well into turn 1 right at the start of the race. So, Jack Osborne was slower then off of the next corner. Here's a replay. This is Jesse Stevens. That's Ethan Critchley. Oh, and it's Alex Davidson who ends up turning Jesse Stevens. Now, I think Davidson got a little bit of assistance there, to be fair.
Good, but he did come in at a huge pace, and he looked like he'd missed his braking point by a long way. Well, number 1 rule, don't hit your teammate. Number 2 rule, really don't hit your teammate again. That was always in the Porsche factory team in the US. Alvin Springer was very clear to his drivers when they arrived in America, usually from Germany, and he says, race hard, race the other cars hard, no problem, but if you hit another Porsche, don't even bother coming back to the pits. Here's an airline ticket, just go home. You're not coming back. Oh
my goodness.
Oh dear.
That's Adam Watson. That's
straight in the fence.
That's a big and that's the problem with that I mean, he's been able to bounce up. Now, is that a tyre barrier that's there? Because if it is, it'll actually won't have as much. So you got contact from Osborne behind. It is a tyre barrier there. No, that's a tyre barrier there. It's a grey conveyor belt on the front of the tyres.
Goodness, yes, well spotted. Goodness, so that is Haribo used to be a sponsor of the Manthey Porsche team at the Nürburgring. Is that what? It's a Manthey spec car painted in altitude colours. It just bounced off the wall and carried on. Again, forgive me for saying it, only Adam Watson could go head on into the wall and just drive off again. Like Chuck Norris.
You know when you see these clips of like little dogs getting knocked over by somebody playing football and then just bounce right back up and shift after the football? That's Adam Watson there, right there. It's that
terrier, isn't he? It's just like little Jack Russell going, no, let me at him, no, I'm going to have him.
Karel Pakalka's not having the best start to this race, 14th right now, and has dropped back from Sophia Ridpath. Now, Ridpath's teammate is trying to get involved with Pakalka there, maybe trying to slow her down, but Alex Davidson's now getting involved in all this with Daniel Sedgley. They're side by side through there. Yeah, they do sort themselves out. Grabowski way off into the runoff there. Has to just back off and serve a slowdown penalty by doing that. Oh, that's contact. That was always going to happen there with that one. Oh, there's one of the Josh Boot as well is off on the inside of that corner. I mean, I've heard of hard defensive driving there from Daniel Sedgley, but Will Guthrie, it was always closing that gap, wasn't it?
They shot before they moved. Oh, and one of the Josh Boot and that fat-hatted McLaren also. Well, a lot of high-profile casualties here. Alex Davidson, and we were on board with Jack Sedgwick when that all kicked off, and he didn't actually, I don't think he got hit by anyone, he just got completely blocked in. Like the last person getting off a ferry. It was just nowhere to go.
That sounds like a voice of experience right there, Peter.
We all know it.
We're carrying on though. 33 minutes remaining. It's Axel Sliptrovic who's leading just about a second gap between him and Michael Gray at the top of the standings. Third place for Tim Perry in his Altitude Esports Porsche. So not doing a bad job in that third. And he's actually hanging on to the back of Michael here. So the Pro-Am lead here is a keenly fought race, and The thing is, if they start squabbling, they could really allow Sliptrovic to pull away. Ethan Critchley, 7 places gained in that McLaren. He's up to 4th place ahead of Matt Fletcher, Matt Loveridge. And we've got a spinner. That's a spinner in the middle of the road. Oh, stay out the way. Oh, my God. Oh, don't rejoin. Oh, my goodness. That was the closest rejoin I have seen without there being contact made.
Did all the hard work there by sort of waiting, then driving off the circuit, and then thought, nah, I'll just jam it in reverse and slam straight back onto the track again. How odd. But it's been a pretty fractious race so far, it must be said. We've only been going for 9 minutes, just over 9 minutes, and we've had several accidents. Meanwhile, at the front, Axel Sliptrovic just starting to edge away now from Michael Gray. Tim Perry's still in 3rd, and Ethan Critchley, great race from him, and he could be about to go up into the podium spots. 2 podiums from the day. If Critchley could finish there, I think that would be an amazing result if he can get that done.
Is Tim Perry making a move on Michael Gray because of Critchley being there, or is he defending from Critchley right now?
Both, maybe.
Certainly looks like it. Oh, Critchley's looking to the inside. That's not usually an overtaking spot there. Oh, and Perry's from wide. He's not picked up a slowdown penalty. That's good. But Critchley round the outside in that McLaren. An upper position and following him through Matt Fletcher. So Tim Perry losing 2 places there in the space of a couple of corners.
Yeah, just a little bit of the rotten end of the stick there did Perry, but he'll fight back, I'm sure. So Critchley now into the podium positions in 3rd, and tell you what, with the pace that he had in race 1, could Critchley get the win here? Could this be, and this would be arguably, if this were a win for Critchley, could be arguably even more impressive than the other wins he's had in World GT, where he has started from the front of the grid. To come through the pack from what would be 11th position would be remarkable.
Well, you consider that James Bume is in 8th place still, so he's not been able to move through at the same rate. Matt Fletcher, who's right behind Critchley, has only gained 3 spots here. Ridpath is one of the biggest movers, with 7 places gained up into 9th, so there's been some moves being made here out there. As Critchley now moving up ahead of Michael Gray. He doesn't fade to Gray. He is Michael Gray. He's down to 3rd place though from pole position in this race. But Gray, his fight's not with Sliptrovic and Critchley. It's with Tim Perry and Matt Loveridge.
It is. So this is now where Michael Gray has to get his head down and try and hook onto the back of that flaming McLaren without getting his fingers burnt, of course, and just try and run the pace as best as he can. He is, one of the very few drivers this season running the Audi, and it's got a bit of a reputation of being a bit of a widowmaker. It's a sharp machine, but let's see what Michael can drag out of the old warhorse, the old Audi. Unfortunately, it's a car that's not long for this world in the Audi range, sadly, which is a real shame, because it's a great package, and in the context of modern day car pricing, actually for the performance that you get from it and the usability, it's a bit of a bargain in relative terms.
In relative terms, yes, absolutely. I mean, being able to get close and personal with a few of these cars in the one opportunity that I've had so far, it just you don't realise when you're watching it on TV just the actual size of these cars. Yes. They're not small cars, are these GT3 cars. They've got a size to them. As now Matt Fletcher's using the slipstream of that Audi in front, pulls out alongside onto the brakes. That Porsche should go through. But yeah, you don't appreciate just the actual size of these vehicles unless you actually see them in person.
They are imposing machines when you get really close to them. They are just fantastic. I think where we've got to, you can always look back with rose-tinted spectacles, and of course there's good reason for that, but you look where we are now, You look at the car. If you were to go back in history and say that, Porsche would have their top GT car, Audi, BMW, Ferrari, and you couldn't name them all if you tried, Lamborghini, and so on and so on and so on. There's so many manufacturers that have a front-running GT car that can win any of the big races in the world. That's a very cool place to be in. That's something that was never the case before.
Yeah, certainly. And for people with the money to be able to buy a competitive car, it's not just like, even if you've got a smaller budget than some other people, it's not like, you're getting an inferior car. You're still getting a competitive car, and if you know how to pedal it and how to set it up and work strategy and things like that, you can still get some good results out of the machinery.
You can, and if you looked in the 1970s, if you wanted to win in the GT class, you bought a Carrera, a 911 Carrera RSR, and a little bit further on from that, you bought a 934, and then you bought a 935. There was no other alternative to those cars. Yes, some existed, but they just weren't as competitive, and that's where balance of performance has been very positive, because it has widened the marketplace enormously, so that you can, a Mercedes big thumping V8 in the front of it can compete with a mid-engine Ferrari or whatever it might be.
Jessica Wilkins has the mechanical meatball warning flag, so that car will have to make its way down pit road. There's a number of cars on pit road. Arthur Turtle, Adam Watson, Alex Davidson. That's two big names there going up to pit road at this stage. Jesse Stevens, Andy Archer, Josh Boot, Paul Webster, Adam Hedgecock, all coming down onto pit road this time. Now, is that a case of, I'm stuck down in traffic here, let's run an alternate strategy and try and get myself a bit of clean air?
Well, could be. There's lots of tricks you can play in a race like this, where yes, we didn't mix the order up much with the reverse grid, but my goodness me, have the lap 1 accidents, they certainly mixed the pack a little bit, so there's a lot of drivers that might have to play a slightly alternative hand here to get as far up the finishing order as possible.
Now, Axel Slijepčević leads this race. Critchley has closed that gap a little bit at the front. It's about 1.2 seconds at the line. Critchley was half a tenth faster on that last lap, so not gaining that much there. Mark Fletcher in third is losing out to these two drivers, but Michael Gray's onto pit road. So the top Pro-Am driver who started on pole position deciding that this is the time to pit. And again, seems very early in the race to be doing this.
Well, he's obviously got because of the tyres. I reckon wants to have enough time in the pit stops possibly to fill up with the maximum amount of fuels in order to give you the time to fit the two tyres. Could that be it?
13.6 seconds, so was actually slower than the majority of pit stops that have happened so far.
So maybe filled to a point where knows what the minimum time for two tyres is, and then match the fuel to that.
Potentially so. Yeah, that could be. But I mean, there is a tactic of having a lighter car at the start, because you don't have to fill your fuel tank to start the race. You can have a slightly lighter car, which means that you're a little bit kinder to your tyres. Come in because you know that you're going to fuel for that two tyres at the front. It's working out whether that's actually going to be faster for you or not, or whether it's just faster to go as long as possible and not have the time to fit two tyres. I think I've just broken Peter having to try and work out that strategy.
I'm a simpleton from the Highlands, Paul. You've got to remember, you've got to take it nice and easy with me. So, what are the altitude? Porsche's to make a move there. Bume, yeah, Bume just playing this one very, very smart. He's taken a real leaf out the book of four-time champion Ross McFarlane of just picking your moments and knowing that it's a long championship. You don't have to go for absolutely every move, and the Loveridge Mercedes ahead is not going to be an easy car to pass, so Bumi's going to just try and pick his moment, and there's just parts of the circuit where the Porsche is just unstoppable, and actually those are the parts of the circuit where the Mercedes is going to be a bit of a handful. And a big old fuel save there from Bumi for good measure.
Yeah, absolutely. A long time off the throttle going into... I've heard of lift and coast. That was lift off and trying to coast to the traffic lights before to make it turn green before you get on the power again.
Whack it into neutral and coast down the hill.
But here's a point for James. He doesn't have to urgently get past these people, because his championship rivals of McFarlane and Davidson, he saw going into that chicane them getting involved in incidents.
That's right, and he'll know that. And okay, now this is earlier than in race 1.
Yeah.
So I think Bumi's going to put tyres on here. Oh, brake. Oh, that. You're right. That is a full commitment pit entry. My goodness me. Oh, that makes the Le Mans pit entry look like a walk in the park. Wow. So it's yes, that should have a corner name.
Yes, it should.
That should. I tell you what, that should be the Kamui Kobayashi pit entry.
It's the swear word corner, because it is. That's exactly what you do when you're coming into that pit lane. Trust me. No tyres.
No tyres. Okay. So maybe Bumi thought then that he was getting held up there, and thought rather than try and force the issue, we'll take a little bit of an early pit stop. We've seen him do that before, maybe pit earlier than the others and just watch the sea part in front of him. So let's see if that works this time around. But Critchley, on the other hand, nearly on the money for the race lead here. He's all over the back of Axel Slijepcevic, who takes a big jump over the rear, over the curb. So Critchley, he's got the decision to make now. Do I try and make the move here and go by and pull away, or do I jump into the pit lane and actually cover off Bumi? I don't know. Do you do that?
I don't think he needs to.
No, he looks to have the pace here.
I'm looking at my track map. Oh, Slijepcevic hits one of those sausage curbs. That's what happens when you hit those sausage curbs on the exit of the final corner. It just kicks the front end of the car up, and that should give Critchley an opportunity. Slijepcevic is going to try and hold on to this place into the hairpin. Down the gears, down on the brakes. Critchley's trying to get the cut back here, and it's going to work, you know. But he's only going to be on the outside of turn number 3. We've seen him make the move on the inside of turn 3 earlier on. Slijepcevic is a canny customer though, and he stays ahead. I was going to point out, I'm looking at my track map, Peter, and I've for my ease, I've highlighted James Bume on my track map. He has got a ton of space. He's in clear air making that pit stop. I think he's calculated that and said, right, I need to come in, get myself clear air.
And look what Critchley's doing right now. He's being held up. This will be a very slow lap here for both Slijepcevic and Critchley. Oh. Here we go again.
Oh, that's contact, and that's Critchley across the grass. Now he's got to be careful. He'll have a slow down penalty from that. He should be able to serve that though pretty easily, but that's bringing Mark Fletcher into all of this. Oh, I'm shaking there. I don't think you were fully clear there, Ethan, with that one. And it's all well and good. I think you'll need to watch back there. That's the curbs again. He's flustered. He needs to just get into a rhythm right now. And you can tell he's still talking about that contact. You can't think about it, can you, Peter? You've just got to put it to the back of your mind for the time being.
It would be a good time to go for the pits there, actually. Just take a very brief reset button and go, right, new race, let's go. That is exactly why what Bume has done is very, very clever, to get that clean air. Critchley had like we said, he had the decision. He chose to go for it. And do you go for it and then make the move, make all that hard work making the move and losing time making the move, and then pit, because you're going to have to pit in the next 5 minutes anyway? Or do you bide your time, or do you go in early? I think this Bume might not. I mean, he did have quite a deficit to Critchley before that little phase there, so there is that to take into account. But Critchley's lost himself a huge amount of time there.
So Slijepcevic last lap 141.7, Critchley 142.8, Matt Fletcher 39.9, James Bumay's just come across the line 39.2. That's a big chunk of time just from Critchley and Slijepcevic battling it out.
Yep, and it wasn't all from that incident at the chicane either. You know, that's the thing is if you're going for that lead, you've got to. It's an investment in time that you hope is going to be worth it. You hope that you'll be able to get the move done quickly and pull away, so that you're in a better position than you were just sitting behind the guy behind you. You know, that might sound negative, but it's a really tactical format, this, with the pit stop in the middle of a 40-minute race. Really interesting.
Yeah, it's not normal for drivers on iRacing to have that pit stop in such a relatively short race. So it does add that little bit of strategy. And you know what? I think he was listening to us on the commentary, because guess who's onto pit road right now? Ethan Critchley.
Lap too late, I think. Has that cost Ethan Critchley a run at the victory? Let's see. The only solace of that might be is that Slijepcevic, who before that was the guy he was battling with, didn't exactly have a clean run either. So, ooh. And Ross McFarlane is getting quicker all the time too. He's just slowly but surely found his way back up the order.
Bumay's coming down the pit straight, and Critchley's just coming out of pit road now. So Bumay's going to be with Critchley here going into turn number 1. I can tell you on my track map on the timing screen. So those two, it's that there you see. Look at how close they are. You think the gap that those two had between them before the pit stop cycle, look at it now. Well,
that was, huge gap was in the favour of Critchley before the pits, and Bumay's played an absolute blinder here. Now this could be a clean fight for the win. At the moment they're in 15th and 16th position, but this is one of your net battles effectively, because everyone ahead of them has to pit. So the C is going to effectively part in front of them as everyone peels into the pits one by one. They'll have a clear run to the flag here. Will Critchley and Bumay. Now, question is, Bumay, he's got a championship to try and win and to try and build his advantage. Critchley's he's treasure trophies here. He's going for the win. The championship mathematically might well still be possible, but it's probably out of reach now realistically. So for him, it's all about race wins, and well, this is the best opportunity he's going to get.
Jack Osborne, Karol Pakalka both come onto pit road for their pit stops now. So we are very much in the middle of that pit stop cycle. Could tell you that Bumay's pit stop was 0.8 of a second quicker than Critchley's as well. So quicker pit stop and also quicker in laps for him. As across the line they go. Now Bumay's just sitting there. He's not able to catch Critchley, and that's the power of that McLaren, that slippery McLaren down the straight. He's able to pull away from Bumay. I think that could be the saving grace of Ethan Critchley here.
I agree, Paul. Because at the points at which Bumay is faster aren't really overtaking areas of the circuit. And no matter how well he comes out the final corner, that McLaren's just got so much boogie on the straight. And of course, when these positions were flipped in race 1, where Bumay had the track position, and he had to defend pretty hard to keep that McLaren behind on the straight and into turn 1. And once he was clear of that, he wasn't under pressure. It was fine. So now we've turned the positions around. Critchley's he's going to have to drive with every bit of soul he's got, because he's going to be under pressure through those tight sections where Bumay will come onto the back of him. He's just got to keep it calm through there.
Matt Fletcher onto pit road. So too is Sophia Ridpath. So they're the latest takers to the pit road to get their service done. Axel Sliptrovic still leads this race over this race that we were seeing, or that we were seeing, should I say. Tim Perry, Matt Loveridge, they've not been able to be separated all race so far. We've barely mentioned them, but they're doing such a good job in holding their positions from where they started. Ross McFarlane currently in 4th, pending a pit stop. Jack Sedgwick, Dennis Grabowski there, owing as a pit stop. The rest, Fletcher, Sophia Ridpath, Johnny Walker, Dan Blackwell, Chris Gooch, they've come down onto pit road, and look who just came out of pit road right behind his teammate. That is going to be Mark Fletcher, the team boss of Altitude Esports. Well, Ethan Critchley's now got 2 Altitude Esports cars to worry about.
Well, that's probably, if anyone's going to come out behind James Boumé, that's exactly who you want to be there, because Mark Fletcher is the team manager. Boumé is his man for the Drivers' Championship. So, yeah, playing a perfect rear gunner here. And look just how close Boumé is able to get through the long, sweeping corners and indeed the tight technical parts of the kind of back part of the circuit here. But there's just no way to get any legs on that McLaren going down the front straight. So this is going to be Boumé is going to have to force Critchley into a mistake here.
Leaders onto pit roads. Axel Sliptrovic now, has he been able to keep that pace up to be able to compete? And here's the thing as well, Sliptrovic, another Altitude Esports driver. If he comes out with this gaggle, Ethan Critchley's going to feel like he's being ganged up on here. Down the start and finish straight they go then, and Critchley's trying to break that draft. Sliptrovic is in his pit box right now. I think he might come out behind these 3, you know.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think the pit strategy wise,
it's going to be tight. It is going to be tight, is this, into turn number 1, and Sliptrovic does hold on to that lead. Oh, I tell you what, Ethan Critchley must be looking around and going, there's a lot of silver and blue around me here right now. Where's my teammates?
It's getting a pretty frosty reception right now with all the Altitude Esports cars around them. Well, you'll just have to burn them off with that McLaren. Sliptrovic, can he hang on for the win here and really slam the door in the face of Ethan Critchley? Nevertheless, if that were to be where Ethan Critchley finished, 2 second places in a feature round, that you can't really ask for a better haul of points than that.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a great result. And it's a great result as well, even if James Boumé finishes 3rd as well, because when you're beating your championship rivals, I mean, McFarlane's in 6th right now after the pit stops. It's massive.
Yeah, and this is Boumé's just been relentless all season. Just hasn't given his rivals a look. To beat him so far this season on the points table, I don't know how you would do it. He's just been there all the time and played it so smart in all the pressure situations. Has come out with a really strong result. So 9 minutes and 21 seconds to go. Boumé, I would think he'll be pretty comfortable right now. He'll take what he can get, but right now he's in a strong place.
I think if he sees the opportunity come, he'll try and make it, but I think it'll be a calculated move. I don't think there'll be any sort of naive last-minute dive to the inside sort of thing. It'll be a bit more calculated than that. It is Sliptrovic, Critchley and Boumé at the front of your field. Tim Perry's your leading Pro-Am in 5th place. He's only lost 2 places in this race so far, so that's another Altitude Esports Porsche in the top 5 there. 4 of the top 5 are all Altitude Esports Porsches. What a day it is for them. Ross McFarlane's in 6th place right now in that Pure Sims Esports BMW. That'll be imposing on the rear view camera. Well, that the front grille of that BMW. Matt Loveridge, Jack Osborne, Michael Gray, they're all together as Pro-Ams in 7th, 8th and 9th. So the Pro-Ams have been really showing themselves up good in this week of the World GT Championship. Sophia Ridpath is your leading AM in 15th, just ahead of Carl Pakalka, who's in 16th place. Your next best AM is going to be Dan Blackwell in 23rd. So that's how the different positions all pan out here for the different drivers and teams out there. But we've got 7 3/4 minutes remaining in this race, Peter. Anything could happen yet.
You bet it will. I mean, that's amazing in the AM battle, how it's just back and forth between Pakalka and Ridpath. Pakalka got the edge in race 1, and Ridpath answering straight back again in race 2. Fantastic stuff there between the BMW and Mercedes drivers there. And at the front, well, Tim Perry, yes, he's got his eyes full with it. Oh, charging Ross McFarlane, who just shows a nose at the inside and takes the Kevin Estra line with nearly a couple of wheels on the grass there. I mean, the World Endurance Championship event at Fuji a few weeks ago, Estra was giving it full rally cut style, putting 2 full wheels on the grass on the inside in a prototype as McFarlane goes through.
So McFarlane helps break that Altitude Esports stranglehold on the top 5. They've still got 3 of their cars in that top 5 right now, and they're 1st, 3rd and 4th. So a tremendous day if you're Mark Fletcher and the team. Especially after a couple of weeks ago where they had a particularly bad round at Barcelona, remember? They were busy bouncing off of each other, weren't they, the teammates, at that round at Barcelona. So I think this is a little bit of redemption for them.
It is, yeah, it definitely is, and it's all you can do is just come back swinging. Don't let it get you down, or use it as a fuel. Going, I really didn't like that feeling. Let's not do that again. And that's when you put the hours of practice in. And a circuit like Fuji, I mean, honestly, short of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, it's so nuanced that there's so much lap time given away if you don't know the place. You know, it's why when we come here, and really any championship where there's local Japanese drivers, they just shine. I mean, Kamui Kobayashi qualified on pole by 0.6 of a second from his teammate Brendan Hartley when we came here, and that's just knowledge of racing in Super Formula and Super GT and things like that. It is a really nuanced track here, so if you put the time in, you can really make big steps up the grid.
I personally love this track. I think it's a fantastic challenge. I mean, I normally do it in touring cars. Whenever I've raced touring cars around here, I mean, for us in touring cars, the curbs aren't so much of a problem compared to these GT3 cars. So you're absolutely launching it over these curbs and that. It's this corner right here that's the tricky one. You've got to get that line absolutely perfect. Cut the inside perfectly, but not run too far wide to hit those yellow sausage curbs. And look at the different lines, Peter, that have been taken there by Ethan and by Axel Slijeptrovic. That Porsche just able to take a more wide opening line, which will give it a better run onto that straight.
Oh, we've got a race on here with 4.5 minutes to go. Critchley has been able to reel in Slijeptrovic, and this is where, yeah, the Porsche is at its weakest and the McLaren is at its strongest. There's a lot of moving around on the straight and a lot of shadow games going on here. Ethan Critchley trying to force the Porsche of Slijeptrovic in front into a mistake, and you know that Bume, he's just stalking, watching all this, waiting for any opportunity to grab some more points.
There was 0.009 of a second difference between Ethan Critchley and James Bume's laps on that last lap, so that shows you how closely matched they are in the slipstream. Critchley, though, he's all over Slijeptrovic like a cheap suit right now. He's ill-fitting and he's wanting to wriggle his way through. Now, does he make a go down into this chicane once again? No. We saw the contact, the little coming together that the two had just before the pit stop cycle. They're carrying on. Critchley taking up a little bit of a different line again. So Slijeptrovic feeling that Porsche, being able to really open up those corners. But it is inviting to Ethan to stick a nose in there, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Ethan Critchley trying just to do everything he can to hustle and to put Slijepcevic in a bind. And if he can get Slijepcevic unsettled coming out of that final corner, that's when he can strike. And look at that. Slijepcevic is going back, forth. I mean, that's definitely more than one move. It's just how whether the stewards feel they need to punish that or not, only if it's protested. So it's as Critchley's going to go. Oh, amazing there from Critchley. Wow.
Go from one side, sell the dummy to the other. He's gone too deep. No, and that's going to allow Bume. It's allowed Bume through. Bume's feeling the need to go defensive on Critchley now. So it's an Altitude Esports 1-2 right now. Axel Slijepcevic holds on to that lead. We've got a lap and a half here to go. Critchley's trying to come back down the inside. He's going to be on the outside of the next corner. Try the cutback maybe. No, it's not happening. So Bume up into second place there from one mistake of just going too deep at the turn number one.
Great racing there, though. Great quality of racing from Bume and Critchley there, coming through those flip-flop sections. Fantastic. And, well, I thought Critchley had that move done. He played it perfectly. He pulled the dummy and down he went down the inside at the last moment. A proper karting move. And, well, just couldn't quite get that McLaren stopped. And Slijepcevic was able to squeeze past and keep the lead. Oh, whoa! Slijepcevic getting a huge wheelie on there over the curb, and Critchley having a big slide as well. The tyres maybe past their best. Tell you what, team photographer Lord Hedge, he's going to get some great wheelie shots after this one.
So, Altitude Esports 1-2, Fatassem Racing 3, Altitude Esports 4 and Pure Sims 5 right now as they come across the line to start the final lap of this race. And what a race it has been. Been a little bit of a slow burner for the last 10-15 minutes, but my goodness, has business picked up. I do think with that heavy braking that Ethan's put a lot of heat through the brakes and into the tyres there, and maybe that's why he's just sliding around a little bit. But Slijepcevic doing a good job. Tim Perry still holding on to Pro-Am lead for Altitude Esports in 6th place right now. Sophia Ridpath's up to 14th now as the top am. Oh, Critchley to the inside, and around he goes. That was a late move. Oh, Ross McFarlane just misses Critchley there. Oh, down the order goes Ethan Critchley. Down to 8th place from one mistake, from one move. And he's got a wry grin on his face, but I think he realises that was a mistake.
2 weeks in a row on the last lap. And for the difference between second and third, Slijepcevic I think was gone by that point, but he's just trying everything at it. But that was a big heart-stopper moment there for James Bume. But what does that mean right now? A 1, 2, 3 for Altitude.
Fantastic racing here as coming up to the line, Axel Slijepcevic. He started on the front row of the grid. I said he had an opportunity here for a win, and he's got it. A win for Axel Slijepcevic in the World GT Championship round number 15 of season 14. Your top Pro-Am and Altitude Esports white driver of Tim Perry. He finishes 5th overall. It's 4 Altitude cars in the top 5. Olympus Esports driver Sophia Ridpath helps her AM Championship hopes by finishing 14th overall and takes the AM win.
Fantastic stories all round. I mean, what a story for Altitude Esports. 1, 2, 3 in the World GT Championship. That is something that they thoroughly deserve. Brilliant driving from all, and well done to them. And Ethan Critchley, he threw everything at it. He really is putting on some heroic performances in that McLaren, and well, keep an eye on him for the rest of the season. That win's going to come.
It certainly is. That is for sure. And certainly the opportunities will come for him still towards the end. But here's a look at the results then. As you see, Altitude Esports 1, 2, 3, Slijeptrovic, Bume and Fletcher, they'll be delighted with that as a team. Pure Sims Esports, Ross McFarlane makes it into 4th place in the end with that result. Tim Perry, your top Pro-Am, in 5th place for Altitude Esports Weiss. As I say, 4 Altitude Esports cars in the top 5. Tremendous result for the team. Fat Atom Racing's Jack Osborne finishes 6th ahead of Matthew Loveridge in his Olympus Esports car in 7th place. Jack Sedgwick, Ethan Critchley ends up in 9th ahead of Michael Gray in 10th place. Arthur Fertel in 11th ahead of Alex Davidson and Dennis Grabowski in 13th. Sophia Ridpath for Olympus Esports is your top AM driver in 14th ahead of Adam Watson. Carol Pakalka 16th for Full Tilt v SimSport. Jesse Stevens, Jonathan Walker, Phil Samways and Daniel Sedgley ran at the top 20. Dan Blackwell, Andy Archer, Josh Boots ahead of Paul Webster, Ben Gregory, Adam Hedgecock and Jesse Payne Wilkins were the last drivers on the lead lap. Paul Clist and Chris Gooch 1 lap down, and then those that did not finish: William Guthrie, Nathan Healy and Josh Thompson on lap number 1. My goodness, that was a tremendous race. I mean, sum that evening up for us, Peter, because there was some great stuff out there.
Just superb. Yeah, really, really good racing out there. Where do we begin? Race 1, James Bume, just flawless under a lot of pressure from Ethan Critchley, who proved there that he's willing to go for it, to take the risk, to go for moves when they're there. So it's fantastic. And in race 2, a 1, 2, 3 for Altitude Esports. They're a group that have worked hard and have put in a lot of mileage, and they're all running the Porsche, which is clearly they're using that combined benefit to get a lot of speed out of one another and out of the car, and it's paid off. Well done to them.
Next round of the World GT Championship is a sprint round at the Red Bull Ring. That's in 1 week's time, October the 2nd. That's a date for your diaries because you want to check that one out. 3 20-minute races at the Red Bull Ring from 8 p.m. UK time. But I'm afraid that is all that we've got time for here tonight. It's been a great result and week for the Altitude Esports team. It's redemption for them, and James Bume has really helped himself in his Pro Championship battle. From everybody here at RaceSpotTV, it's goodbye.